Steve Schmidt's back, political strategist, Lincoln Project co-founder, my longtime friend. Steve Schmidt, I got to hear what's on your mind about all this.
Well, this was a monumental month in the history of the country. Democracy is fueled by faith and belief by the people in the legitimacy of the system. And our system requires both sides in the competition of ideas that's decided in elections. It requires both sides to be willing to lose an election. And if you have one side who is no longer willing to lose an election and won't represent the popular will of the American people, then what you have on American soil is an autocratic political party. And so we have some Republican senators, none of whom covered themselves with glory in any of this, with the exception of Mitt Romney over these last couple of years. At least we have 6 of them who hold on to the basic tenets of American democracy behind the lines of the autocratic movement, right? Really a last defense, I suppose, in the Republican Party. And then all of the rest of us on the other side of that line, from AOC and Bernie Sanders to the Lincoln Project and Tim Miller and all of the folks that stood with Joe Biden, whose careers have been as conservatives or Republicans, right? American politics realigned this month. We're now one election away in this country from losing our democracy because one party doesn't believe in it. We saw the poisoning of American democracy drip by drip, drop by drop this month until we saw 82% of Republicans said, hey, this is illegitimate. And once you reach that critical mass, you're in a lot of trouble as a society and a country. And this is going to be the defining political fight, I suspect, over the balance of all of our lifetimes. But truly a historic month, and not one for the good, in the middle of a profound calamity. And Trump's vandalism of this country, its institutions, has been profound, and it will be damaging for a long time to come.
Steve, I understand, I think at this point, why Trump does what he does, from people like Tim O'Brien and his niece who've spoken out. I do not understand how elected Republicans like Mitch McConnell and even right-wing hosts like Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh do not say today there's a line that can't be crossed, and that's violence.
That line is in the rearview mirror, Nicolle. They crossed it. They crossed the Rubicon. They crossed it in the month of November. We cannot be fantastical in wishing that what has happened has not happened. In our thinking, it has happened. We've watched it play out. We've watched Trump and his loony attorneys. We've watched the declarations of fraud. We've seen United States senators, members of the House of Representatives. They all know that Biden has won the election. What they're doing is for no purpose other than power. The Republican Party is an organized conspiracy for the purposes of maintaining power for self-interest and the self-interest of its donor class. There is no fidelity to the American idea and ideal. There is no fidelity to the ideas of classical liberalism or American democracy. The whole fight in the history of the country has been who gets to participate in the American idea and ideal. In 2020, there's one side, and I'm proud to be on it, that says it's for everybody, for Black people, for Latinos, for gay people, for every American, right? It belongs to all of us. That's not what the other side believes. They believe that they should rule over the majority of the country by any means necessary. The debate that has been about, do we get to participate in this great experiment, has now become one whether we continue with this great experiment at all. That's why they are so radical. There has never been a force that has achieved power or is within reach of achieving power in the next election that's been so hostile to the history, the foundings, the essence, and the entire meaning of the country, as is this Trump and Trumpist movement that has taken over lock, stock, and barrel the Republican Party which is no longer dedicated to American democracy. It is dedicated to Trump and Trumpism and to his family, to defense of his indecencies, his autocratic manner, his corruptions, and apologists for the profound damage he has done.
You know, Tim Miller, one of the most interesting things is where the Fishers were. And I have no sympathy for people who jumped on the Trump train and then were sad to see it crash. But to see John Bolton and Bill Barr and Liz Cheney on the other side of what Steve Schmidt just described, the three of them, all right-wing conservatives, and I think I've gone through this before. I mean, John Bolton and Rick Grinnell agree on all matters of foreign policy, but they're on the two sides of the fact and fiction divide around the result of the election. Bill Barr and Matt Schlapp, I'm sure, have the same judicial philosophy. They're on two irreconcilable sides of the fact fiction election result debate. Liz Cheney, who's as conservative as any House Republican elected, serving right now, is on the other side of this fact fiction debate. It can never again be reconnected. I mean, the Republicans who have acknowledged the truth, they can't go back into normal, polite society because none of them raised their hand when Trump was caging children or, smearing and obstructing a federal investigation into whether his campaign colluded with Russia. But neither can they be at home in the fictional world of Donald Trump, can they?
Well, I think you're seeing that clearly. I don't know that Liz Cheney and John Bolton are seeing that clearly. I think good for them for saying and doing the right thing. I think they feel comfortable in where they are in their careers, that they can do this. I think that's a big reason why they're doing it, not to take anything away from them. I also think they're a little deluded about what the future of the Republican Party looks like, and they do believe they'll be able to reattach to it. And frankly, even though I don't think I will be a part of it, I hope so. I hope that there are some people who live in the realm of reality and who believe in basic democratic values and norms who do fight within the Republican Party. That's needed. It's not as Steve just laid out. It is a problem when one of the two major parties in the country have completely thrown in with autocratic values. And I just want to talk about this lawsuit that just came up in the last hour. 17 states, Nicolle, 17 Republican attorney generals have signed a brief calling for the cancellation of the legal votes of people in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and Georgia and Arizona. We've talked a lot about voter suppression and the problems with that. And I don't want to minimize that at all. It is a very serious problem. But what these guys are talking about is far past voter suppression. It's vote cancellation. It's taking people who were told how to participate in a free and fair election, who followed the rules, who cast the ballot for the person that they chose. And now these 17 attorney generals and Ted Cruz and the president of the United States want to take their vote away from them. They want to cancel that vote. I mean, that is literally Turkey and Belarus. That is anti-democratic. And you can fight before an election over, voter ID laws and voter suppression, and there are reasonable people on both sides of those debates, though many Republicans have acted unreasonably. But vote cancellation, this is unprecedented, and it's the president of the United States, Ted Cruz, and 17 Republican attorney generals that are pushing for it. To your point, how do you come back from that? How can you realign once you've supported something that grotesque?
And I think to your point, Jen, Steve, you've said that President-elect Biden should go straight to the public to build public support and use that as pressure on elected Republicans. But Tim spent a week watching Newsmax and OWN and wherever else the Trump folks went when Trump told them to stop watching Fox. I mean, are they still susceptible to pressure, or are we sort of a few train stops past that?
No, we're past it. Look, again, we're in a fight now between an autocratic movement and a democratic movement. And the only way to win a fight is either through submission or through exhaustion. And here's the deal. And this is what I would say to the people that Tim described as deluded. They are in a party that has let out of the underworld a mixture of conspiracy theorists, white nationalists, white supremacists, militia groups, And all of those people are part of their Trump coalition, right? They are in the mainstream of the Trump coalition. Groups like the Lincoln Project, our view is very simple. There is no compromise with these people. They must be driven back into the underworld of American politics. They have no place at the table. And that any political party that wishes to associate with them has to become so toxic that they have no chance of winning elections. And it's going to be the work of many elections. But this odious cast of characters has to be brought to electoral submission over these next years. At the same time, the side that believes in democracy cannot be brought to exhaustion, cannot be worn out in this fight. Everybody who's on the side of democracy, who believes in elections, from AOC to the Lincoln Project, everybody in between, Republican voters, the group that Tim, I'm tripping over right now, and I apologize, but all of us, right? If we don't hold together, right? If we don't stay together on the fundamental question, we can lose the country to an autocratic party in the next presidential election. This is all out in the open right now. But you can't put this back in the box, what happened this month. You know exactly who is faithless to their constitutional oaths. And it's not a big stretch to say this. If you won't acknowledge the result of this election, if you're pretending that Donald Trump had the election stolen from him, on no planet are you faithful, Senator, member of Congress, Mr. Mayor, Mr. State Legislature, are you faithful to your oath? You've spoiled it. You've wrecked it. You have desecrated it. And this is why this is such a tragic error, because we've never seen such cowardness and such faithlessness towards the American experiment, towards the American Republic, as we do in this hour right now.